The Whispering, a fantasy sleep story, presented by Bedtime Stories. Make yourself comfortable, close your eyes, take a slow, deep breath. And now, let the story begin. Lyra lived in a place where the air itself hummed with secrets. Her home was a small, round cottage, nestled so snugly into the base of a towering ancient oak that its roots formed natural shelves in her bedroom, and its highest branches brushed against the stars. Moss, soft as velvet, grew on the stone walls, studded with tiny bioluminescent fungi that pulsed with a gentle, sleepy light after dusk. This was the edge of the Whisperwood, a forest unlike any other, where sounds seemed to carry on currents of unseen magic, and every rustle of leaves might be a whispered word. Lyra was a quiet child, her hair the color of sun-dappled autumn leaves, and her eyes the deep, thoughtful brown of the forest floor after a rain. She wasn't one for boisterous games or loud shouts. Instead, she spent her days listening. She listened to the slow, steady drip of dew from the broad leaves of the giant's umbrella plants, to the scuttling of pebble beetles beneath the stones, to the sigh of the wind as it wove through the ancient boughs of the Whisperwood. But most of all, she listened for Gaithai whispering. Not everyone heard it. Grandmother Ilara, who smelled of lavender and old parchment, and knew more about the world than anyone Lyra had ever met, said that only those with ears attuned to the heart song of the world could truly discern it. For most, the whispering was just the wind, or the distant murmur of the forest. But for Lyra, it was more. It was a soft wordless melody, a constant shifting presence that seemed to emanate from the very earth beneath her bare feet and the sky above her head. One morning, as the first rays of the sun painted the sky in hues of peach and rose, Lyra awoke before the sun sparrow had even begun its morning song. A particular quality in the air had stirred her. It wasn't just the usual gentle hum, there was a new urgency, a subtle but insistent pull. She slipped from her bed, her small feet silent on the cool flagstone floor. Her room was still bathed in the soft glow of the night moss, making the carved wooden animals on her shelves cast long dancing shadows. She dressed quickly in her favorite tunic, woven from the soft fibers of river reeds and dyed with berry juice, and stepped outside. The world was hushed, cloaked in a pearly mist that clung to the ancient trees like a forgotten dream. The air was cool and sweet, thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming moon lilies. A tiny iridescent sprite no bigger than her thumb fluttered out from beneath a dew-kissed fern. This was Flicker, her constant companion, a creature of pure light and mischief, whose wings beat with the sound of 1,000 tiny bells. "Flicker," Lyra whispered, her voice barely disturbing the quiet. "Do you feel it?" Flicker darted in a tight circle around her head, its light pulsing with an excited rhythm. It wasn't a feeling for Flicker, it was its very essence. The sprites of the Whisperwood were born from the forest's magical energies, and the whispering was their lullaby, their anthem, their lifeblood. Lyra followed a winding path deeper into the Whisperwood. The trees here were truly ancient, their trunks gnarled and thick, their branches reaching like arthritic fingers towards the heavens. Their bark was a tapestry of greens and grays, etched with patterns that looked suspiciously like forgotten symbols. Sunlight, now breaking through the mist, dappled the forest floor in shifting mosaics of light and shadow. Ferns unfurled their fronds with silent grace, and clusters of glowberries pulsed with a soft internal luminescence, like tiny heart-shaped lanterns. As she walked, the whispering grew stronger. It wasn't a sound heard with her ears, not entirely. It vibrated in her bones, a gentle tremor in her chest, a tickle behind her eyes. It was like a melody played on instruments she couldn't see, sung by voices just beyond the edge of hearing. Sometimes it felt like a question, sometimes a sigh, sometimes a joyous ripple. Today, it felt like a summons. She passed the sunken stones, a circle of moss-covered boulders where the sprites gathered to tell stories in bursts of colored light. She skirted the whispering pool, whose surface was always perfectly still, reflecting the sky like a liquid mirror, and whose depths were said to hold forgotten wishes. Lyra knew these places well, but today, the whispering pulled her past them, towards a part of the forest she rarely visited. This was the realm of the elder trees, the oldest and largest trees in the Whisperwood. Their roots were like subterranean rivers, stretching for miles, their canopies so vast they created perpetual twilight beneath them. Here, the air was thick with the scent of ancient wood and damp earth, and the silence was profound, broken only by the occasional soft fall of a leaf. Yet, it was in this very silence that the whispering resonated most clearly. Lyra stopped beneath the largest of the elder trees, a colossal sentinel whose trunk was wider than her cottage. Its bark was a mosaic of deep furrows and ridges, like the weathered face of a very old friend. She leaned against it, pressing her ear to the rough surface. She could feel it now, not just in her bones but almost physically, a low thrumming that ran through the tree into her body. It was as if the tree itself was singing. Flicker, usually buzzing with restless energy, hovered perfectly still beside her, its light a steady, unwavering beacon. Lyra closed her eyes, letting the sensation wash over her. The individual notes of the whispering began to separate, to coalesce. She heard the deep, resonant tones of the earth, the high, clear notes of the wind, the gentle murmur of the hidden streams beneath the forest floor. And woven through it all like a silver thread was something else, a soft, melodic hum that felt like a name, or a question, repeated over and over. It wasn't words she understood, not in the way she understood Grandmother Ilara's stories. But it was, meaning. She felt a longing, a deep, quiet yearning emanating from the very core of the forest. It was a beautiful, melancholic sound, like the memory of something vast and ancient, now diminished but not forgotten. She stayed there for a long time, lost in the symphony of the forest. When she finally opened her eyes, the sun was higher, casting longer, sharper shadows. Flicker zipped around her, tugging gently at a strand of her hair, as if reminding her of time. Lyra knew she should return home. Grandmother Ilara would be making her morning tea, a brew of sunmint and slumber bloom. As she walked back, Lyra tried to hum the melody she had heard, but the notes slipped away like water through her fingers. It was too complex, too ethereal to capture. She felt a profound sense of wonder, but also a burgeoning frustration. What was the whispering trying to say? What was it asking? Back at the cottage, Grandmother Ilara was indeed tending to her herbal teas, stirring a fragrant concoction in a steaming pot. Her face was a network of gentle wrinkles, her silver hair braided with strands of woven willow bark. She looked up as Lyra entered, her eyes, the color of warm honey, crinkling at the corners. "There you are, little listener," Grandmother Ilara said, her voice soft and melodious, like the rustle of dry leaves. "The forest has been calling to you this morning, hasn't it?" Lyra nodded, seating herself on a low stool by the hearth. "It was stronger today, Grandmother. Much stronger. It was like a song, a very old song full of sadness." Grandmother Ilara smiled gently, pouring Lyra a cup of the warm, soothing tea. "Ah yes, the heart song. It waxes and wanes, Lyra, like the tides, like the moon. Some days it sings with joy, some days with sorrow. It reflects the very breath of our world." "But what does it mean?" Lyra pressed, cradling the warm mug in her hands. "It felt like it was trying to tell me something specific, not just a feeling, like a question, or a name." Grandmother Ilara sat beside her, her gaze thoughtful. "The whispering is many things, sweet child. It is the memory of the world, for the trees remember all that has come to pass. It is the language of the spirits, for they speak in echoes and resonances. And yes, sometimes it is a question or a call." She reached into the deep pocket of her apron and pulled out a small, smooth stone, no bigger than Lyra's thumb. It was a deep forest green, veined with silver, and felt cool and comforting to the touch. "This is a river stone," Grandmother Ilara explained, "found in the deepest part of the Whisper River, where the water flows over ancient roots. It is said to carry the river's memory, and the river in turn carries the whispers of the earth to the sea." She placed it in Lyra's palm. "Hold it close. Listen to it. Sometimes, when the whispering is strong, a familiar echo will find its way into the stone." Lyra clutched the river stone. It felt warm now, as if absorbing her own heat. "Does it whisper secrets?" Grandmother Ilara chuckled softly. "Only to those who are patient enough to listen. The world does not shout its truths, Lyra. It murmurs them, it whispers." She paused, her gaze distant, as if looking into a memory. "There are tales, very old tales, of a time when the whispering was not just a song, but a clear voice. A voice that guided, that taught, that protected." "What happened?" Lyra asked, her heart quickening. Time happened, Grandmother Ilara sighed. And the forgetting of humankind. As fewer and fewer listened, the voice grew softer, until it became the gentle hum we hear today. But it is not truly silent, Lyra, not for those like you. She tapped Lyra's forehead gently. You have the gift of the deep ear. You are a bridge. Lyra spent the rest of the day in quiet contemplation, the river stone clutched in her hand. She tried to listen to it, but it remained silent, just a cool, smooth stone. Yet its presence was comforting. She felt a new sense of purpose stirring within her. If the whispering was a call, if it was a question, then she wanted to understand. She wanted to be the one to hear its truths. As dusk began to fall, painting the cottage in shades of lavender and deepening indigo, Lyra felt the familiar pull of the whispering again. It wasn't as urgent as it had been that morning, but it was there, a steady, persistent invitation. She decided to go out again, this time with the river stone as her guide. Be careful, little one, Grandmother Ilara called from the doorway, her voice tinged with a knowing smile. And listen with your heart, not just your ears. Lyra ventured back into the whisperwood, flicker dancing ahead of her, its light a tiny beacon in the growing twilight. The trees stood like ancient guardians, their silhouettes stark against the fading sky. The air was cooler now, and the nocturnal creatures were beginning to stir. The gentle hoots of the moon owls echoed softly, and the silver moths, their wings dusted with shimmering starlight, fluttered past her face. She walked slowly, letting the subtle currents of the whispering guide her. It seemed to pull her deeper into the elder tree's domain, to a place even more secluded than where she had been that morning. The path grew fainter, eventually disappearing altogether, leaving her to weave her way through ancient roots and under trailing moss. The river stone in her hand began to warm, not just from her touch, but with an internal warmth. It pulsed faintly, a soft, rhythmic beat, like a tiny heart. And as it pulsed, Lyra felt a peculiar sensation in her mind, as if a veil was thinning. The sounds of the forest around her became sharper, clearer, yet also blended into a unified whole. She found herself in a small circular clearing she had never noticed before. It was hidden behind a curtain of weeping willow moss, its entrance so perfectly concealed, it was as if the forest itself had woven a shroud around it. Within the clearing, the ground was covered in a carpet of luminous, silvery moss that glowed with a soft ethereal light, illuminating the space like a forgotten dream. In the very center of the clearing stood a single gnarled tree, unlike any other in the whisperwood. Its bark was smooth and pale, almost white, and its branches, instead of reaching upwards, grew downwards, their tips brushing the glowing moss, as if drinking its light. It looked like an inverted tree, its roots reaching for the sky, its leaves turned towards the earth. And from this tree the whispering poured forth. It was no longer a vague hum, or a distant song. It was distinct, intricate, a cascade of melodic sounds that swirled around Lyra, entering her not just through her ears, but through every pore of her skin, through the river stone clutched in her hand. Flicker, entranced, hovered directly above the tree, its light expanding and contracting with each wave of sound. The silvery moss pulsed in time with the whispering growing brighter, then softer, like a breathing organism. Lyra felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if she had been here before, perhaps in a dream. The river stone in her hand began to vibrate. It wasn't just warm, it was humming, emitting a faint high-pitched tone that harmonized perfectly with the sounds of the tree. And then, as if the stone were a key, something shifted. She saw them. Not with her eyes, but with a different kind of sight. Faint, shimmering currents of light, like gossamer threads, began to emanate from the tree, weaving and dancing in the air. They were patterns, intricate and ever-changing, forming symbols she didn't recognize, yet felt a deep resonance with. They were the visible manifestation of the whispering, the very language of the forest made tangible. And as she watched, mesmerized, a single clear note, distinct from the swirling symphony, detached itself from the tree and drifted towards her. It wasn't a sound, but a feeling, a direct impression in her mind. It was a question, sharp and poignant, and though it had no words, Lyra understood its essence perfectly. Who remembers? It seemed to ask. One. Who truly listens? One and unayent, Pimatem tower. I'm disgusted and sick. Then, another, softer impression followed, like a gentle caress. a feeling of profound loneliness, and a hope, fragile but persistent, that someone, somewhere, would hear. And as Lyra stood there, bathed in the tree's luminous magic, the riverstone glowing brightly in her hand, she knew, with an absolute certainty, that she was meant to answer. The whispering was not just a song of the past, it was a plea for the future, and she, Lyra, was now a part of its unfolding story. The whispering was not just a song of the past, it was a plea for the future, and she, Lyra, was now a part of its unfolding story. With a deep, steadying breath, Lyra clutched the riverstone, its warmth a living pulse in her palm. The luminous magic of the whispering tree swirled around her, a gentle eddy of starlight and ancient forest scents. She felt the call not as a demand, but as an invitation, a soft tug on the threads of her own spirit. Reaching out, not with her hands but with her intent, Lyra allowed the riverstone to guide her. It hummed, a low, resonant thrum that vibrated through her bones, aligning her own energy with the tree's. As if responding to her silent affirmation, the light within the tree intensified, no longer merely surrounding her, but seeming to draw her inward. The bark, which moments ago had felt like rough, ancient skin, now seemed to soften, becoming porous, almost translucent. She felt herself not physically entering the tree, but rather sinking into its consciousness, a plunge into a vast green ocean of memory and longing. The individual whispers that had previously been elusive, like half-heard melodies, now coalesced. They weren't spoken words but impressions, images, emotions that washed over her in waves. She saw a time before, long, long ago, when the world was younger, and the veil between the seen and unseen was thinner. She saw a multitude of trees, not unlike this one, but smaller, younger, scattered across vast landscapes. Each pulsed with its own light, its own unique song, but all were connected by invisible shimmering threads of magic. They were the song weavers, the ancient heartwood keepers, not individual trees, but a living network, a grand symphony that hummed beneath the very fabric of the world. These song weavers weren't just trees, they were the guardians of harmony, the conduits of the world's natural magic. Their roots delved deep into the earth's secrets, their branches reached towards the sky's wisdom, and their collective song maintained a delicate balance. The riverstone glowed fiercely in Lyra's hand, acting as a lens, sharpening these ancient visions. She saw glimpses of beings, gentle and wise, tending to the song weavers, beings with eyes like deep pools and hair like woven starlight, their touch bringing forth blossoms and their whispers guiding the wind. They moved with a reverence Lyra had never witnessed, their lives intertwined with the very pulse of the planet. Then the vision shifted, growing dim, like a light slowly fading. The vibrant threads connecting the song weavers began to fray, not with a sudden snap, but a slow, agonizing unraveling. It wasn't a cataclysm, not a violent shattering, but something more insidious, a gradual drifting apart. Lyra felt the emotions of the trees, confusion, then sorrow, then a profound, aching loneliness. She understood that as the world changed, as creatures grew more focused on their own affairs, on building and striving, they began to forget to listen. The subtle hum of the world's magic, once a constant presence, became a background noise, then a silence. The ancient beings, the heartwood keepers, faded from memory, their wisdom dismissed as myth. The threads of the song, once a robust tapestry, thinned into fragile gossamer, then broke. One by one, the distant song weavers fell silent, their light dimming, their connection severed. The grand symphony of the world, once a chorus, became a scattering of isolated notes, each trying desperately to be heard, but unable to find its harmony with the others. Lyra felt the immense weight of this sundering, this slow, quiet dissolution of a sacred bond. The whispering tree, the one she stood before, was one of the last remaining, still singing its lonely part, its light sustained by sheer will and ancient magic, hoping, praying, that someone would remember the song. The plea wasn't for salvation from an external threat, but for reconnection, for the reweaving of the frayed threads. It was a call to mend the song, to bring harmony back to a world that had forgotten how to listen. The profound loneliness she had sensed earlier was the echo of a universe yearning for its lost melody. As the vision receded, Lyra found herself once more standing before the tree, though the world around her felt richer, deeper, infused with a history she now carried within her. The river stone pulsed rhythmically, a steady heartbeat against her palm. It wasn't just a conduit, it was a key. She saw now that the stone itself was a fragment of that original perfect harmony, a solidified note from the grand song of the world. It resonated with the remaining song weavers, and Lyra realized, with a thrill that ran through her veins, that it could guide her to them. It was a compass, a tuning fork, and a piece of the lost melody, all in one. Her task, as it crystallized in her mind, was daunting yet clear. She wasn't meant to mend the entire sundering alone, not yet. Her first step was to find the other isolated song weavers, to help them reconnect their voices, to begin the slow, deliberate process of reweaving the song. The whispering tree had shown her its sorrow, its hope, and now, it seemed, it was ready to offer a guide. As the last remnants of the ancient vision faded, a new light stirred within the tree's deepest roots. It wasn't the brilliant, encompassing glow of the tree itself, but a softer, more concentrated luminescence, like a fallen star trapped in moss. From a hidden crevice, tucked amongst ancient roots Lyra hadn't noticed before, a creature emerged. It was a moth, larger than any she had ever seen. Its wings a translucent tapestry of greens and blues, edged with shimmering silver. Its antennae were like delicate ferns, and its body glowed with an internal gentle light, casting dancing shadows on the bark. It moved with a slow, deliberate grace, its multifaceted eyes reflecting the tree's magic. This was no ordinary insect. This was a whisper-wing moth. The moth fluttered silently, not with the frenetic energy of common moths, but with a serene purpose, circling Lyra once, then twice. Its wings left trails of faint, shimmering dust in the air, like powdered starlight. It paused, hovering directly before her, its gentle light illuminating the river stone in her hand, which pulsed in response, as if greeting an old friend. "You are the listener," a voice whispered, not from the moth itself but from the air around it, a voice like rustling leaves and distant chimes. "And the stone is your guide. I am Naim, a guardian of the whispering, born of its lingering hope. The tree has shared its tale, and now, the first path lies before you." Lyra, though startled, felt no fear. The moth's presence was one of profound peace and ancient wisdom. "The first path," she echoed, her voice barely a whisper. Nim, the whisper-wing moth, gently nudged the air towards an opening in the tree's roots, an opening Lyra hadn't perceived before, now subtly highlighted by the moth's glow. "Beyond this threshold lies the whispering glade, a place where the song once echoed strongest. But time has veiled it, and silence has taken root. You must go there, Lyra, and with the river stone, awaken its memory. It holds the first note, the first thread, to begin reweaving." Lyra looked at the dark, moss-shrouded opening. It wasn't a gaping maw, but a narrow passage, barely wide enough for her to squeeze through, leading into what appeared to be solid darkness. Yet, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer pulsed from within, a breath of cool, damp air carrying the scent of rich earth and forgotten wildflowers. "How will I know what to do?" Lyra asked, her gaze returning to Nim. The moth drifted closer, its light seeming to focus on the river stone. "The stone will hum when you are near. It will warm when you are aligned. Listen to its song, Lyra, as you have listened to the trees. In the glade, search for the heartwood spire, a place where the song weavers once gathered. There, a fragment of the ancient song sleeps, waiting for a listener to awaken it." Lyra nodded, a sense of purpose settling deep within her. The weight of the task was immense, but so was the clarity of her first step. She wasn't alone. She had the river stone, Nim's ethereal guidance, and the profound, enduring hope of the whispering tree. With a final gentle flutter, Nim turned, leading the way towards the root passage. Lyra took another deep breath, her fingers tightening around the river stone. Its warmth spread through her hand, a comforting assurance. She stepped forward, bending low, and squeezed through the narrow opening, leaving the vibrant light of the whispering tree behind, and entering the cool, damp embrace of the path to the whispering glade. The path was short, winding through ancient, gnarled roots, the air thick with the smell of rich, dark earth. Nim's soft glow was her only beacon, dancing ahead, illuminating patches of velvety moss and the glimmer of unseen moisture. Suddenly, the passage opened into a vast cavern, not underground, but nestled deep within the earth mound of the whispering tree itself, a hidden sanctuary. It was a space of breathtaking beauty, where the earth seemed to breathe and magic lingered like morning mist. The ceiling soared, adorned with countless bioluminescent fungi that glowed with a soft ethereal light, like a subterranean sky filled with tiny stars. Roots, thick as ancient tree trunks, snaked down from above, forming natural arches and columns, draped with shimmering vines that dripped with dewdrops, each reflecting the faint light like a tiny prism. This was the Whispering Glade. The air here was cooler, incredibly still, and infused with the subtle scent of damp earth, sweet honeysuckle, and something else, something ancient and profound, like forgotten dreams. In the center of the glade stood a formation that drew Lyra's eye immediately. It was a spire, not of stone, but of petrified wood, twisted and gnarled, reaching towards the cavern ceiling like a prayer. Its surface was smooth in places, rough in others, and inlaid with intricate patterns of glittering moss and phosphorescent lichen. This must be the Heartwood Spire. As Lyra approached, guided by Nim, the riverstone in her hand began to hum more insistently, a low, resonant note that vibrated through her entire being. The glow intensified, casting a radiant circle of light around her feet. The spire, too, seemed to awaken in its presence. Faint lines of light, like glowing veins, began to pulse beneath its surface, growing brighter with each step Lyra took. Nim alighted gracefully on a moss-covered ledge near the base of the spire, its own light pulsing in harmony with the riverstone. "Feel the rhythm, listener," the moth's whispered voice echoed around her. "The spire remembers. It yearns to sing." Lyra reached out, her hand trembling slightly, and placed the riverstone against the smooth, cool surface of the Heartwood Spire. The moment her hand made contact, a surge of energy flowed through her, not violent, but immense, like tapping into a hidden spring. The spire erupted in light, not a blinding flash, but a deep, resonant glow that spread through the entire glade, chasing away the shadows and illuminating every shimmering vine and glowing fungus. The riverstone throbbed with a powerful, joyous energy, as if it had found its true home. And then Lyra heard it. Not a whisper, not a fragment, but a full, clear note, sustained and beautiful. It was a sound like pure water flowing over smooth stones, like the first breath of dawn, like the gentle rustle of leaves in an ancient forest. It was the first note of the song of the world, awakened from its long slumber. It reverberated through the glade, filling the space with a palpable vibration of life and hope. As the note resonated, Lyra felt something else awaken within the spire. A vision, clearer and more direct than the one from the Whispering Tree, unfolded before her eyes. It was a map, etched not in lines, but in light. A map of the lands beyond the Whispering Tree, far beyond her familiar forest home. Glowing points of light appeared on this ethereal map, each representing another sleeping song weaver, another isolated note in the fragmented symphony. And leading from the Heartwood Spire, a faint shimmering path of light stretched out, connecting this awakened note to the nearest dormant one. This was her next step. The awakened note of the Heartwood Spire wasn't meant to remain here. It was meant to travel, to join with another, to begin the process of reconnecting the song. And Lyra, with the riverstone now radiating with newfound power, was its carrier. The first destination on the map was a place she had only heard about in hushed tones, the sunken citadel of Eredor, a legendary city said to be swallowed by an ancient lake, far to the west, nestled amongst the Sky Mountains. It was a place of myth, of forgotten knowledge, and now, apparently, of a sleeping song weaver. Lyra gently pulled her hand away from the spire, the riverstone still glowing brightly. The intense light in the glade began to soften, settling back into its gentle luminescence, but the single pure note continued to hum, a constant, beautiful presence in the air. Nim floated down from the ledge, hovering near Lyra's face. "The first thread is found, listener. The path is shown. The journey is long, and the world is wide. But you carry the hope of ages, and the song now sings within you." Lyra looked at the riverstone, then at the lingering map of light on the spire, then back at Nim. The sunken citadel of Eredor. It was a name that evoked images of mystery and ancient power. She had never ventured beyond the edges of her own forest, and now the world was calling her to its most hidden corners. "I understand," Lyra said, her voice imbued with a new strength, a quiet determination. "I will go." She knew with a certainty that settled deep in her soul that this was just the beginning. The song was vast, the sundering profound, but the first note had been found, and the path to the next was clear. Lie with the river stone glowing like a miniature sun in her hand, and the ethereal whispering moth, Nim, fluttering beside her, Lyra knew her quiet life by the river was forever changed. The world, once bounded by familiar trees and winding paths, had suddenly unfurled into an ancient, magical tapestry, and she, Lyra, was now a thread within its weaving. Returning from the whispering glade through the root passage felt different. The darkness was less imposing, the air less mysterious. She carried a new light within her, the reverberation of the heartwood spire's awakened note echoing in her heart. When she emerged back into the clearing, the whispering tree seemed to greet her with a softer, more contented hum, its luminous magic pulsing with a gentle approval. The night sky, now visible through the canopy, seemed to glitter with 1,000 new secrets. Lyra gazed at the river stone. It was no longer merely warm, it pulsed with a steady inner light, a miniature beacon of hope. She could feel the faint, continuous hum of the awakened note emanating from it, a living sound that resonated deep within her chest. This was her compass, her guide, and her connection to the ancient song. The sunken citadel of Eridor, Lyra murmured, the name feeling foreign yet strangely familiar on her tongue. How do I get there, Nim? Nim, perched delicately on her shoulder, its wings shimmering like distant galaxies, communicated not with spoken words, but with a series of vivid images projected directly into Lyra's mind. She saw a path, not a clear, trodden trail, but a series of natural markers. A cluster of ancient, moss-covered standing stones at the edge of the whispering forest, a winding river that led to a vast, shimmering lake, and beyond that, the jagged, snow-capped peaks of the Sky Mountains, where the citadel was said to slumber beneath the waves. The journey was long, days, perhaps weeks, of travel through lands Lyra had never seen. Lyra's mind, usually so concerned with the simple rhythms of her daily life, gathering herbs, tending her small garden, listening to the river's song, now whirled with a grander purpose. She would need supplies, food, water, warm cloaks for the mountains, a sturdy pack. She would need to be discreet. Her village, nestled safely by the great river, was not accustomed to its young folk embarking on quests of ancient magic. She couldn't alarm her grandmother, who would surely worry, but she also couldn't leave without a trace. As if sensing her thoughts, Nim's image stream offered a gentle suggestion, a small, hidden pouch woven from moonpetal silk, enchanted to keep its contents fresh and light, and a cloak spun from spider silk and starlight, offering warmth and invisibility when needed. These were gifts of the whispering tree, Nim conveyed, remnants of the Heartwood Keeper's magic, waiting for a true listener to claim them. Where would I find such things? Lyra whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Nim fluttered from her shoulder, circling the base of the whispering tree. Its glow intensified over a patch of ancient roots, where a small, barely perceptible hollow had opened. Reaching inside, Lyra's fingers brushed against something soft and cool. She pulled out a small, intricately woven pouch, shimmering with an inner light, and a cloak, impossibly light and fine, the color of twilight, studded with tiny, almost invisible flecks that sparkled like distant stars. The fabric felt like spun air against her skin, and when she held it up it seemed to absorb the surrounding light, making it difficult to discern its true shape. These were made long ago, for those who carried the song. Nim's silent voice resonated. They will serve you well on your journey. Lyra carefully folded the cloak, tucking it into the moonpetal pouch, which, despite its small size, felt surprisingly spacious and empty, ready to receive her provisions. She spent the rest of the night planning, her heart a mixture of trepidation and exhilarating resolve. She would pack dried fruit, nuts, a small loaf of her grandmother's hearty bread, and a water skin. She would leave a note for her grandmother, explaining only that she felt a strong pull to explore the lands beyond the forest, a wanderlust she couldn't ignore, promising to return when her spirit was sated. It was a half-truth, but one she hoped her grandmother, with her own quiet understanding of the world's deeper currents, might instinctively grasp. As dawn approached, painting the eastern sky in hues of rose and lavender, Lyra prepared to leave. She pulled on her sturdy boots, strapped the moonpetal pouch to her belt, and draped the starlight cloak around her shoulders. As she did, she felt a subtle shift, a gentle blurring at her edges, as if she were stepping between worlds. The cloak truly lived up to its promise, making her feel less visible, more a part of the shadows and the morning mist. She paused at the entrance to a small cottage, gazing at her grandmother's sleeping form. A pang of tenderness, of longing to stay, tugged at her heart. But the hum of the riverstone, the awakened note within it, was a constant, gentle call, urging her onward. She left the note on the small polished riverstone that served as her grandmother's bedside table, a silent promise. Stepping out into the cool morning air, Lyra turned towards the whispering tree one last time. Its luminous magic was fading with the rising sun, but she could still feel its powerful, silent presence. Nim, the whisper-winged moth, fluttered ahead, its gentle glow a beacon in the pre-dawn gloom, leading her towards the path that would take her beyond the familiar boundaries of the whispering forest. The first step was always the hardest, the unknown stretching out before her like a vast, uncharted sea. But as Lyra walked, the river stone pulsed steadily in her hand, a warm, living heart. The awakened note from the Heartwood spire echoed softly within her, a melody of hope and purpose. She was Lyra, the listener, and the song of the world awaited its reweaving. Her journey to the sunken citadel of Eridor had begun, and with each step, she carried not just a stone, but the fragile, enduring hope of an ancient magic yearning to sing again. The world was vast, and its secrets deep, and Lyra was now an essential part of its unfolding melody. The world was vast, and its secrets deep, and Lyra was now an essential part of its unfolding melody. The air around the Heartwood spire, once thick with ancient resonance, thinned as Lyra stepped onto the winding path that led away from its roots. The vibrant glow of the spire faded behind her like a lingering dream, its emerald light swallowed by the deepening twilight. The heart stone, warm and alive in her palm, pulsed faintly, a steady, comforting rhythm against her skin. It was more than just a stone. It was a compass, a whisper of the world's deep yearning, and a promise. The awakened note from the spire, a clear, shimmering tone, resonated within her, a constant hum that felt like the truest part of herself. The path beneath her feet was not paved with stone or earth, but with a carpet of shimmering moss that seemed to gather the last vestiges of daylight, glowing with a soft inner luminescence. Overhead, ancient boughs, heavy with leaves the color of jade and amethyst, intertwined to form a living canopy, filtering the stars into scattered diamonds. This was the Whisperwind Path, a secret route known only to the spire's guardians and those called to its purpose. It was said to lead through the slumbering forests to the edge of the sunken lands, where the journey to Eridor truly began. As Lyra walked, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves above, and she listened. Not just with her ears, but with that deeper sense that had begun to awaken within her. She heard the faint, sleepy sigh of the ancient trees, the murmur of hidden streams flowing beneath the moss, the distant thrum of the earth's own heartbeat. But beneath these familiar sounds, she also sensed a quietness, a profound stillness that was unnatural. It was as if a vital thread had been plucked from the world's tapestry of sound, leaving an echoing void. This, she knew, was the absence of the song. Days blurred into a rhythm of walking and listening. Lyra learned to read the subtle signs of the Whisperwind Path, the way certain flowers leaned in a particular direction to indicate a fork, the shift in the moss's glow to warn of uneven ground, the silent guidance of luminescent fungi that blossomed only along the correct route. She ate berries that tasted of starlight and dew, and drank from springs that sang a forgotten lullaby. She slept beneath the benevolent gaze of the ancient trees, the heart stone resting beside her, its warmth a constant presence against the chill of the night. One morning, as the first rays of dawn painted the forest in hues of rose and gold, Lyra emerged from the deep woods into a landscape of rolling hills. The Whisperwind Path had brought her to the edge of the Whispering Willows, a legendary grove of trees known for their immense age and their sorrowful song. But as Lyra approached, she heard no song, only a profound silence. The willows were magnificent, their branches sweeping down like emerald waterfalls, their ancient trunks gnarled and thick as small towers. Their leaves, usually a vibrant, shimmering green, hung dull and listless, tinged with a faint, sorrowful gray. The air here felt heavy, laden with an unspoken grief. Lyra felt the awakened note within her stir, a faint tremor, as if it were reaching out, seeking a response. The heart stone in her hand pulsed more insistently, a gentle thrum against her palm. She walked deeper into the grove, her boots sinking softly into the damp earth. The silence grew heavier, pressing in on her, a physical weight. Then she saw it, a small, shimmering light, flickering erratically amidst the drooping branches of the largest willow, its trunk wider than any Lyra had ever seen. It was a light of pure, crystalline blue, like a trapped tear. As she drew closer, the light solidified into a small, ethereal figure, no bigger than her hand. It was a sprite, its form shimmering like heat haze, its tiny wings beating with a desperate, faltering rhythm. Its face, delicate and drawn, was etched with a profound sorrow. It hovered near a wound on the willow's ancient bark, a dark, weeping scar that seemed to drain the life from the tree. "Oh, little one," Lyra whispered, her voice soft in the overwhelming silence. "What troubles you?" The sprite startled, its shimmering form flickering violently. It stared at Lyra with eyes like polished sapphires, wide with surprise and a fragile hope. You can see me?" Its voice was a mere breath, a whisper of wind through dry leaves, barely audible. "And you hear my sorrow?" "I hear a great quietness here," Lyra replied, extending her hand slowly, revealing the heart stone. It pulsed gently, a warm beacon. "And I feel the pain of this ancient tree." The sprite drifted closer, drawn by the stone's gentle light. "The heartwood spire," it breathed, its voice gaining a fraction of strength. "You carry its echo. You are a listener." "I am Lyra," she confirmed. "What has happened here? Why do the whispering willows not sing?" "The wound," the sprite gestured with a translucent hand towards the weeping scar on the willow. "It is a shard of silence, a splinter of the world's broken song. It drains the life from the elder willow, and through it from the entire grove. We, the echo weavers of this place, cannot mend it. Our own songs are muted, our magic faltering." "Echo weavers?" Lyra murmured, her gaze sweeping over the mournful trees. "Are you the ones who usually lend their voices to the willow's song?" "We are," the sprite confirmed, its wings drooping. "Our purpose is to gather the echoes of joy and sorrow, of wind and rain, of laughter and tears, and weave them into the willow's melodies, sending them out into the world as comfort and remembrance. But the silence, it consumes the echoes before we can gather them. Our wells of sound are dry." Lyra reached out, her fingertips hovering inches from the weeping scar. The heart stone pulsed faster, growing warmer. The awakened note within her resonated, a counter-melody to the encroaching silence. She closed her eyes and truly listened. She heard the faint, almost imperceptible groan of the elder willow, a deep, ancient pain. She heard the struggling beat of the sprite's tiny heart, and the muted sorrow of the other echo weavers, faint presences she could now sense around her, hidden by their fading magic. "The silence is not empty," Lyra said, opening her eyes. "It is a hollow yearning to be filled. The song is not gone, merely fractured, its notes scattered. This wound, it is a place where a note of the world's song has been silenced, and it is pulling other notes into its void." The sprite hovered anxiously. "Can it be healed?" Lyra looked at the heartstone, then back at the wound. The stone seemed to hum, a soft vibration that traveled up her arm. "The spire's note," she whispered. "It is a thread of the true song. Perhaps if I can weave it into this place, it can begin to mend the tear." She pressed the heartstone gently against the weeping scar on the elder willow. A soft golden light emanated from the stone, spreading slowly across the dark wound. The awakened note within Lyra swelled, a pure, clear tone that resonated outwards, pushing back against the heavy silence. She focused, channeling the energy of the spire's note, feeling it intertwine with the residual magic of the elder willow. It was like tuning a vast, ancient instrument, finding the perfect pitch amidst discord. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the gray tinge began to recede from the willow's leaves. The weeping scar began to dry, sealing itself with a faint, shimmering gold. The heavy silence in the grove began to lift, replaced by a delicate, almost imperceptible hum. The echo weavers, drawn by the returning resonance, began to emerge from their hiding places, their forms gaining definition, their wings beating with renewed strength. The sprite, its tiny face alight with wonder, flew closer. "It is returning! The echo! It is returning!" As the golden light faded, and the scar became a faint, silvery line. A soft, mournful note drifted from the elder willow. It was a single, pure tone, filled with the sorrow of ages, yet imbued with a newfound hope. Then another note joined it, and another, until the entire grove began to hum with a gentle, undulating melody. The whispering willows had begun to sing again, their voices soft and low, like a mother's lullaby. The leaves shimmered with renewed vibrancy, their greens deepening, their forms swaying with a graceful rhythm. "Thank you, listener," the sprite breathed, its voice now clear and bell-like. "You have woven a new thread into our song. We are forever in your debt." "I have only helped the song find its way back," Lyra smiled, feeling a deep warmth spread through her. The heart stone pulsed contentedly in her hand, its light now a steady, gentle glow. "May your echoes be strong and clear." As Lyra prepared to continue her journey, the sprite, whose name she learned was Pip, flew up to her shoulder. "My magic is not yet strong enough to travel far, but I can guide you to the edge of the sunken lands. There, the path becomes trickier, the echoes fainter. You will need a guide who knows the whispers of the earth itself." Lyra was grateful for Pip's company. The little sprite, though small, had a boundless spirit and an encyclopedic knowledge of the forest's hidden paths and ancient lore. As they journeyed, Pip would point out rare flowers that glowed in the shade, describe the songs of birds Lyra had never heard, and share tales of the world before the Great Silence, when the song of the world resonated in every living thing. "The sunken citadel of Eridor," Pip explained one evening, perched on Lyra's outstretched finger as they watched the sunset paint the sky in fiery colors. "It lies in the heart of the sunken lands, a vast expanse of shifting sands and treacherous fogs. Once it was a gleaming city, a beacon of magic and knowledge, but when the song was broken, the very earth wept, and Eridor sank beneath the sands. Now only whispers and ancient echoes remain, guarded by creatures touched by the silence, or by those who seek to exploit its fractured magic." "How will I find it?" Lyra asked, gazing at the distant, hazy horizon. "The Heartwood Spire's note will guide you," Pip replied, "and the Heart Stone will resonate more strongly as you draw near. But the sunken lands are not like the forest. The magic there is fragmented. It can play tricks on the mind, twist perceptions. You will need someone who can sense the true currents beneath the illusions." Just as Pip finished speaking, a rustling in the undergrowth caught their attention. A small round figure emerged from behind a cluster of glowing toadstools. It was a gnome, no taller than Lyra's knee, with a long moss-green cloak that seemed to shift and blend with the forest floor. His beard, the color of rich soil, was intricately braided with tiny roots and sparkling quartz crystals. His eyes, bright as polished emeralds, sparkled with ancient mirth and deep wisdom. He carried a gnarled staff that seemed to hum with a faint, earthy magic. "Well, well," the gnome rumbled, his voice like pebbles tumbling in a stream. "A listener and an echo weaver, venturing towards the silence. The world truly is waking, isn't it?" Pip flew off Lyra's finger, hovering cautiously. "Master Fimble, we did not expect to see you so far from the stone roots. The whispers of the world are carried on the wind, little Pip," Fimble chuckled, his eyes twinkling as he looked at Lyra. "And the song, it is a mighty whisper indeed, even when broken. I sensed a mending, a weaving of new threads in the whispering willows. A listener, you say?" He gestured to Lyra. "I am Lyra," she said, offering a small bow. "And this is Pip. We are on our way to the sunken lands, to Eridor." "Ah, Eridor," Fimble sighed, a shadow passing over his ancient face. "A place of great sorrow and even greater power, and a place where the song is most deeply wounded. You carry the Heartwood's echo, I perceive." He nodded towards the Heartstone, which glowed softly in Lyra's hand. "A brave journey, listener, and one you cannot make alone, not through the shifting sands." "Pip mentioned that," Lyra admitted. "He said I would need someone who understands the earth's whispers." Fimble grinned, a network of friendly wrinkles crinkling around his eyes. "And I, Fimble, am a stone speaker. I listen to the earth's deep murmurs, the ancient songs of rock and soil. The sunken lands are my kin, in a way. The sands shift, yes, but the bedrock beneath them remembers. I can guide you through the illusions, past the traps, and perhaps even to the edge of the sunken citadel itself." Lyra felt a surge of relief. Would you? That would be a great help, Master Fimble. Of course, child, Fimble nodded, tapping his staff on the ground. A faint tremor ran through the earth, a soundless greeting. The song needs mending, and those who carry its threads must be aided. Besides, he winked, it has been too long since I've had a proper adventure. These mossy roots can get rather dull after a few centuries. And so, Lyra's journey gained a new companion. Pip, after guiding them to the edge of the forest where the rolling hills gave way to a vast shimmering expanse, bid them a tearful farewell, promising to keep the willow's song strong. Lyra felt a pang of sadness at his departure, but the resolute presence of Fimble by her side filled her with renewed courage. The transition from the verdant forest to the sunken lands was stark. The air grew drier, the breeze carried fine grains of sand instead of the scent of damp earth and blossoms. The light, no longer filtered by leaves, was harsh and bright, reflecting off the shimmering dunes. This was a land of echoes, Fimble explained, where the sun seemed to play tricks on the eyes, and sounds could be distorted or swallowed whole by the vast emptiness. Hold tight to your senses, listener, Fimble advised, his voice surprisingly clear above the wind. The sunken lands are full of mirages, illusions woven by the fractured magic. What you see may not be real, and what you hear may be a trick of the wind. Trust what the Heartwood's note tells you, and what the Heartstone reveals. Lyra found his words to be true almost immediately. A shimmering lake appeared on the horizon, its surface calm and inviting, promising cool relief. But Fimble merely tapped his staff, and the lake rippled, then dissolved into thin air, revealing only more endless sand. Later, they heard faint, alluring music, a beautiful, haunting melody that seemed to call to Lyra, tugging at the awakened note within her. But Fimble shook his head. A siren's call of the sands, child. It draws lost souls to their doom. The true song is felt, not just heard, in this place. Lyra learned to rely on her deeper senses. The Heartstone in her hand would pulse with a steady, warm beat when they were on the right path, but would grow cold and heavy when they strayed into an area of dangerous illusion. The awakened note within her would resonate with the faint, true echoes of the world, distinguishing them from the hollow mockeries of the fractured magic. She found that the true song, even in this desolate place, was like an underlying current, a faint, undeniable hum beneath the static of the silence. One afternoon, as the sun beat down mercilessly, they came across a series of strange crystalline formations jutting out from the sand. They glittered with an unnatural brilliance, catching the light and scattering it into dazzling, disorienting patterns. The air around them felt strange, thin and crackling with an almost painful energy. "These are the whispering crystals," Fimble explained, his voice low. "They grow where the song was most violently torn. They absorb ambient magic, distorting it, twisting it into strange shapes and sounds. Many travelers have been lost among their deceptive refractions." Lyra approached one of the crystals cautiously. It hummed with a low, dissonant chord, a jumble of notes that grated against the awakened note within her. The Heartstone grew cold and vibrated unpleasantly. She closed her eyes, trying to filter out the chaotic noise, to find the true echo beneath. "There is a trapped echo here," Lyra murmured, placing her hand on the cold, smooth surface of the crystal. "A sound of great joy, twisted into sorrow." Fimble looked at her with interest. "Indeed. What do you hear, listener?" Lyra focused, her own internal note acting as a tuning fork. She felt the crystal's disharmony, but beneath it, like a faint light struggling through murky water, she sensed a pure, vibrant chord. It was a note of laughter, of children playing beneath a rainbow of boundless delight. It had been captured and warped by the crystal's fractured magic, held prisoner. "It is a child's laughter," Lyra breathed, her voice filled with empathy. "Trapped and twisted into a cry of despair." "A terrible fate," Fimble agreed, shaking his head. "These crystals feed on such pure echoes, turning them into lures for the unwary." Lyra knew she couldn't leave it like that. The awakened note within her urged her to act. She concentrated, letting the Heartwood's note flow from her, through the Heartstone, and into the crystal. It was like pouring pure, clean water into a muddy stream. The dissonant hum of the crystal wavered, struggling against the incoming harmony. The Heartstone in her hand grew warm again, throbbing with effort. It was a delicate balance. Lyra wasn't trying to destroy the crystal but to restore the echo within it, to mend the fractured sound. She imagined the pure note of laughter, disentangling itself from the twisted cords, rising to the surface. She poured all her focus, all her will, into the task, her brow furrowed in concentration. Slowly, the chaotic hum of the crystal began to smooth, softening into a gentle, resonant chord. The colors within its depths, once sharp and jarring, blended into a softer, more harmonious spectrum. And then, faintly at first, Lyra heard it. A clear ringing sound of pure, unadulterated laughter, echoing freely from the crystal, no longer distorted by pain. It danced in the air, light and joyful, filling the otherwise desolate landscape with a momentary burst of happiness. The other whispering crystals around them seemed to dim slightly, their sharp edges softening, their dissonant hum quietening, as if soothed by the freed echo. The harsh energy in the air lessened, becoming more bearable. Lyra leaned back, catching her breath. The heart stone was warm and steady again, humming with contentment. A faint, silvery glow now pulsed from within the crystal she had touched, a gentle beacon of restored harmony. "Remarkable, listener," Fimble said, his emerald eyes wide with admiration. "You have not only heard the echo, but you have untangled it, you have mended a tiny fragment of the song." Lyra smiled, a deep satisfaction blooming within her. Each act of mending, no matter how small, brought her closer to understanding the true nature of the song, and her role in its reweaving. The sunken lands were still vast, and the citadel of Eridor still distant. But with each step, Lyra felt her own connection to the world's magic deepen, her purpose solidify. She was Lyra, the listener, and the broken world was slowly, painstakingly, beginning to sing to her again. They continued their journey, the freed echo of laughter lingering in Lyra's memory like a promise. The sun began its slow descent, painting the endless dunes in shades of orange and purple. Fimble led them to a sheltered alcove beneath an ancient, weathered rock formation, a place where the sand could not reach, and the air was calm. As Lyra settled down for the night, the heart stone in her hand pulsed with a gentle, reassuring beat, a lullaby of hope in the heart of the sunken lands. The path ahead was still long, full of challenges and wonders, but Lyra knew she was ready. She was learning to listen, truly listen, and with each note she found and mended, the song of the world grew ever closer to its magnificent return. The path ahead was still long, full of challenges and wonders, but Lyra knew she was ready. She was learning to listen, truly listen, and with each note she found and mended, the song of the world grew ever closer to its magnificent return. As dawn painted the sky in hues of rose and lavender, Lyra awoke, feeling the residual warmth of the heart stone against her palm. It pulsed now with a steadier, more insistent rhythm, guiding her northeast, towards the deepest part of the sunken lands. The landscape shifted, becoming less sandy and more marshy, dotted with ancient petrified trees that stood like silent sentinels. Soon, she came upon a vast, shimmering lake, its surface still and reflective, mirroring the sky above. In its center, partially submerged, lay the ruins of a forgotten city, its towers worn smooth by eons of water and time. The air here was heavy with a profound silence, a deeper quiet than any Lyra had encountered. It was the silence of a song, yearning to be sung. As she cautiously approached the water's edge, a small shimmering figure emerged from the depths, a water sprite, no bigger than her thumb, its form made of pure, flowing light. But this sprite was not dancing or laughing as she imagined sprites should. It was curled into a tiny bowl, trembling, its light flickering weakly. Its song, Lyra realized, was a mere whisper, a fragile echo of what it once was. "Little one," Lyra murmured, kneeling. "What troubles you?" The sprite slowly uncurled, its luminous eyes wide and filled with an ancient sorrow. It pointed a delicate, watery finger towards the heart of the sunken city. "The heart stone of the lake eye," it seemed to say without words, "it sleeps. And so do I. Iron, Petite, and Sinwanizen and Hausen, Shapton, Didana." Lyra understood. The sprite's very essence was tied to the city's song, a vibrant, flowing melody that had been silenced when the heartstone fell dormant. She dipped her hand into the cool water, allowing the heartstone in her palm to touch the lake's surface. A gentle hum resonated through the water, a ripple of warmth spreading outward. Guided by the heartstone, Lyra swam towards the sunken city, the sprite darting ahead, its light strengthening with each stroke. They found the heartstone of the lake deep within the grandest ruined temple, a colossal, opalescent pearl, radiating a faint, almost invisible light. It was cracked, not physically, but as if its inner melody had been fractured. Lyra placed her own heartstone against the lake's heartstone. She closed her eyes, listening intently. She heard not just the sprite's sorrow, but the yearning of the ancient waters, the deep, resonant bass of the earth beneath, and the shimmering high notes of the sunlight struggling to pierce the depths. It was a symphony of quiet hope, waiting for its conductor. Taking a deep breath, Lyra began to sing. Her voice, soft and clear, started with the simple, steady pulse of her own heartstone. She wove in the sprite's fragile melody, a shimmering, watery tune. Then she added the deep hum of the earth, the gentle sigh of the wind, and the hopeful sparkle of the sunlight. It wasn't a complex song, but it was honest, pure, and filled with all the notes she had gathered on her journey, a symphony of empathy and connection. As her song flowed, the crack in the lake's heartstone began to mend, not with a sudden flash, but with a slow internal glow that spread like liquid moonlight. The sprite, now radiating with newfound brilliance, danced around Lyra, its own song a joyful, bubbling cascade of sound that blended perfectly with Lyra's. Suddenly, the lake's heartstone vibrated with immense power, releasing a wave of pure crystalline sound that washed over the sunken city, through the lake, and out into the sunken lands. The petrified trees began to bud with luminous leaves, the marshlands burst into bloom with iridescent flowers, and the air filled with the gentle hum of newly awakened life. Lyra felt the song of the world swell around her, a magnificent, vibrant tapestry of sound and light. It wasn't just a song, it was Vithi song of everything, the whisper of grass, the roar of the wind, the laughter of rivers, the quiet patience of mountains. It was whole again, complete, resonating with a power that was both ancient and utterly new. The heartstone in her hand, its purpose fulfilled, softened, dissolving into a fine warm dust that shimmered for a moment before disappearing. Lyra stood in the heart of the resurrected city, the water sprite now a brilliant beacon of joy, darting through the newly clear waters. She felt a profound sense of peace, a deep quiet knowing that she was not just a part of the world, but a harmony within its endless melody. As the last rays of the setting sun painted the sky in magnificent colors, Lyra closed her eyes, a gentle smile gracing her lips. The song of the world was no longer a distant hope, but a present reality, a lullaby that embraced her, promising an eternity of wonder. She drifted off to sleep, cradled by the world's own magnificent, mended song, knowing that every single note, no matter how small, truly mattered.